That's amazing. I'd like to touch quickly on something that we mentioned right at the beginning, which is physical activity, before talking about what someone listening might do. And I just want to pick up on something you said earlier, which is sort of none of these people are doing exercise. What are they doing?
They're moving naturally throughout their day. They're moving all day long, but unconsciously. I know this exercise is popular and it's sort of been a public health intervention, but I have to say in America, it's been a miserable failure. In the United States, fewer than 24% of people even get 20 minutes of physical activity a day. So we spend $150 billion a year on the exercise industry and people don't go. Yet in blue zones, they're moving all the time, but they spend zero money on it. And my argument is, instead of trying to hound people to get up and go to the gym or, pay for this gold level membership, design our streets so it's easy, safe, and aesthetically pleasing to walk to get our coffee, to walk to work, for our kids to walk to school, which we don't do anymore. When I was a kid, 50% of American kids walked to school. We're down to 10%.
50% down to 10%.
Yeah, in the United States. So we've
amazing.
engineered that physical activity out of our lives. And for most people, simply walking 45 minutes a day is about 90% the value of training for a marathon. And is exercise a good idea? Yes. But does it work on the population level? No. I mean, if I were investing, if I were a government investing in an intervention, I would not invest in exercise. I would invest in walkable streets, parks, meeting places, aesthetically pleasing outdoors. We know that works.
I think it's incredibly powerful and it's interesting. I think that I now work from home. It's worked incredibly well for the company. But it took me a while to realize that basically my level of movement had collapsed, because before I used to commute and I was living in London, which New York or Boston or something has quite good public transportation. So I would walk to then go and take a underground train and then walk again at the other end. And then at lunch you would go out and you'd walk somewhere to get some food. And what I realized is, I was regularly doing 10,000 steps a day before that without really having to think about it. This is just what would happen. And then I would suddenly realize I'm doing 3,000 steps. I now am trying to engineer walking into my day. So for example, I like to walk my daughter to school, because actually that just creates in a really nice way, sort of 45 minutes of walking. And similarly, I really try and make sure I have some reason I have to be out of the house, and I have to proactively create that though, Dan. And I'm just thinking a little bit about your example of these people living on their hill villages, right? Where they're presumably having to go up and down the steps quite a lot just to do anything.
What's happening in America, there's a sort of centrifugal development where the cities are dying and people are moving out into the suburbs. So imagine you start working at home and you live in a typical middle American suburb. There's nothing to walk to. Your garage is attached to your house, so you don't even walk to your car. So you walk out your door, you get in your car, you drive to the mall, or you go to a drive-through Starbucks and pick up your coffee. There's almost no opportunity to unconsciously move. Until we look at the elephant in the room, that you cannot keep flogging the dead horse of individual responsibility if you want to get populations healthier. You have to set up their environment so you set them up for success. You have to create cities where it's easy for people to move naturally, and we're doing the opposite.
And Dan, you are pushing on this yourself, right? This
That's
has sort of become
business.
your passion as well as your business, is to try and get cities to redesign themselves.
Because it works.
So if you're listening to this and you're in charge of a city, then you should be following up with Dan. If you're listening to this and you're not in charge of a city, but you want to understand what's the actionable advice, or how can I do this for myself? How could you make your life more blue zone
without having to move to a mountainous area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The first thing is to shift away from the silver bullet mentality, which most of us have, to what I call a silver buckshot mentality. Silver buck means sort of a scatter pattern of little BBs instead of, it's a little self-serving, but I wrote a book called The Blue Zone Challenge, where I aggregated about 40 or so evidence-based ways for you to set up your kitchen, your bedroom, and your home so you mindlessly move more, eat less and eat better, and socialize more. And they tend to do, like in your kitchen, I'm a big believer that we're all on a seafood diet. We eat the food we see. So if on your counter, America, a lot of, we start eating a bag of chips and we don't finish it, we put a clip on it, we put it on the counter. Bad idea. Instead, if you put a bowl, you go out and buy yourself the most beautiful fruit bowl you can afford and put that in the middle and keep that full. So when you walk through the kitchen, the default is fruit rather than the chips. There's actually been Cornell Food Lab did a study on toasters. Very little of what we put in toasters produces something healthy on the back end. So taking the toaster off the counter occasions people losing about 2 kilos after 2 years as opposed to those who don't. People who have plants throughout their homes actually move more because they're watering plants. There's little things you can do to nudge yourself into moving more.